Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. I'm so excited about this panel, but also this conference. So I'm a CIA grad, and I was, when I went to school, I was kind of yearning for studies in this subject. And so it's so beautiful to see that this is happening, and to be a part of it's really special. When Therese asked me to do this demonstration, to moderate it, it was such an easy yes immediately once I heard the title of it. But then once I found out the names of the chefs that were going to be part of it, it was a hell yes. It went from a simple yes to a hell yes, because these two, I can't think of two other chefs that are more perfect for this. So first we have Zoe Adjonyoh, who splits her time between the US and the UK, and is just such an ambassador for Ghana and Ghana's food. And then we have Nana Araba-Wilmot, also, who runs the Love That I Need Supper Club, which is fantastic here in the US. So I'm gonna let y'all get started, and this is gonna be like super casual. They're gonna start cooking, and I'm gonna be asking them questions about flavors and techniques, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So Zoe, if you wanna get started.
I would love to. Right, so I'm talking about suya. So, suya is a spice blend from West Africa. It's actually originally from Nigeria, but us Ghanaians have taken it on as our own a little bit. Like we borrowed jollof from the Senegalese. We don't want to talk about that today because it can get heated. Much like suya, which is a gorgeous, smoky, heated suya blend, it's also a style of cooking. Now, I've got a lot to say in not very much time, so bear with me. So I want to talk about my personal suya blend. Now, regionally, and at the north of Ghana and the north of Nigeria and the west, you're going to get different seasonings, different blends here. So I want to talk about my specific blend. So I use a combination of grains of paradise, cube, grains of Ceylon, and I blend that with my hibiscus salt and all of these ingredients here. So I have a pre-mix of hibiscus salt with those single origins. So we can take those away, please. Now, the reason I do this is because hibiscus you might not understand or know yet, but it really draws out the sweetness of meat. It's really great. That's why I use it, because it just draws out this beautiful profile, and you have bitterness and sweetness together. It's gorgeous. Then we have some paprika, smoky, we have some cayenne for some heat, some ground hot pepper for some colour, just to keep it red, some dry ginger, some dry garlic. I don't have peanut powder. Oh, I'm grinding my own. Right, here we go. This could take a minute. I want to talk about peanuts, actually, and people don't realise how common it is. Like, peanuts feature so heavily in the Ghanaian diet, right? I mean, you're doing peanuts today as well. And they grow like weeds, almost, and we call them groundnuts. I find it really upsetting about how many people now are intolerant to peanuts, because they're really missing out on suya. But the peanuts are a really strong profile here. Do you reckon I could get those blended? Because I could be here for days. Anyway, so you're going to whisk those together, right? But peanuts, yes. Who brought peanuts and heat to West Africa? It was the Spanish, believe it or not. And in Africa, we regard, I don't know if you know this, but the peanut is one of those beautiful foods that we regard as having a soul. So, and not only does it grow like a weed, but we put it on everything, and it has a spiritual background to it. And Pierre talks about food as medicine, and that's a very common thread in my dialogue around West African cuisine. Because, sorry, just to say, all of that, when it's blended nicely, will look like that, with the peanuts in. And you can optionally do a fresh version. And sometimes I do, like if I'm doing a barbecue, I'll do it like with the fresh ingredients of fresh ginger, with fresh garlic, and all of those things together. But today I want to keep it simple, keep it light. So, suya blend. Anyway, back to peanuts. Sole, weed, and we use it on everything. It's garnish everywhere, and it's a beautiful profile. So you've got smokiness, some heat, some sweetness, and it's all the things. We're using steak cut pretty, for chichinga it's pretty like wafer thin, like this.
So Zoe, can you also talk about the context of suya in Ghana and
then we're going to add that blend to your meat with a little bit of groundnut oil to keep that peanut profile. I'm gonna get my hands nice and dirty.
Zoe, I don't know if you can hear me over the fan.
I can hear you, go for it.
Okay. I wanted to hear a little bit about the context of suya and chichinga in Ghana.
Yeah, so I mean, the context for me is that, you know, this is a very, very common street food. And normally it's like, well, like I said, it's like, it's got that soul and spirit of West Africa, right, suya? It's the name of the spice, it's the name of the style of cooking, which is on a grill over coals usually. And you know, every morning in Accra, people will be stunned by this, but every morning, people go and get on their way to work, they'll pick up like a bag of wache, which is almost like a 7-course meal in a polythene bag, honestly. It's this is amazing. And they'll pick up suya. Like the thing is in Ghana is like, people are like, what's a traditional breakfast? And it's like, I don't even know, because we eat all kinds of things all day long. It's just about what's near you on the street. So oftentimes people will pick up chichinga, wache on their way to work. And it's like, yeah, why not have that healthy, a bit of fire to start your day. Yeah, I mean, what specifically would you like to know about that?
No, I was just looking for that, just so people understand when people eat suya and how they eat it on the street. And
yeah, it's just really beautiful street food, and there's so many ways to like use it. You know, most commonly we use goat meat because that's what we have as our most common meat. Sometimes you'll find it with chicken. I have to use different cuts of beef that have, you know, sometimes if I'm being fancy schmancy, there's going to be wagyu. Most of the time it's like rump tail, because you just want a bit of, I like to have a balance between lean and fat. You want some marbling, obviously, because it's going on the grill, and you want that fatty flavour, but also you want to be able to eat it like quick. Which is why it's thin, like you just want to rip it off the skewer very, very quickly. Let me just, I don't want to just waste loads of time skewering everything again, so I'm just going to oil these up. Oh, thank you. And suya as a spice blend, which you'll see here is one of the spices I sell in my e-commerce shop, Ghana Kitchen, is so versatile beyond that, right? So you can have this, you can do this traditional cooking method on the grill with chicken, beef, goat, but you can also use it on vegetables. It's one of those blends. Like for me, it's like, why don't we use suya instead of Old Bay? Like, why isn't everybody putting it on their barbecue? Why doesn't everybody know about it, frankly? Because it's just such an easy way to cut through to beautiful heat, beautiful flavor profiles that will instantly take you to West Africa, not just Ghana. Like it will really take you there, you know? And as you can see, it cooks really, really easily. So yeah, part of the mission that I've been on for a few years now, when I say a few, I'm talking about 13 years, is to do this, is to introduce people to the flavor profiles from West Africa, so they can incorporate it into their everyday cooking, because for me it's not necessarily about cooking specifically traditionally Ghanaian dishes, it's about introducing people to the profiles and flavors so that they can have a relationship with it and then get curious about the food and go in search of what is traditional, if that's what they're up to, or they want to go and play with the flavors in new and exciting ways, just so they can experience it at home, you know?
Absolutely.
Okay, peanuts. I talked about peanut being the soul of the nation, the soul of the continent, because let's not forget, Africa has 54 countries, and as I said, it features very heavily in our cuisine as a garnish, as an ingredient. So, I'm just going to show you very, very simple, again, I'm going to swap that for my crushed nuts, a little cucumber and groundnut salad. And I also want to talk about avocados because, oh, I need those nuts. And I need a bowl, sorry, to mix all of those things. I'm so prepared this morning. Sorry, I'm tired, I've had 2 hours sleep. Right. Groundnuts, again, like I said, feature very heavily in our diet, as do avocados, which also grow like weeds. Also, all of these things obviously aren't indigenous. The Spanish brought the heat, the Spanish brought the peanuts. I'm not sure who brought avocados, but we have our main sort of supply of avocados is like the Guatemalan variety, the Indian variety. So they're not like Hass avocados that everybody in North America and the global West use. There's tiny little Hass that has kind of exhausted Venezuela's resources. So I want to encourage people to explore other varieties of avocado. So, sometimes we have this yellow, fibrous, slightly more buttery, but can be quite fibrous skin, also commonly exported from Kenya. That's where I normally see it. I don't think Ghana exports avocados as a main export, but I really wish it would, because we need to be more, there's more than one, there's literally 200 types of avocado in the world, and we can't just keep relying on one source. Anyway, so in Ghana we have really great avocados, and they can weigh up to like a pound, because they're so big and sweet and nutty and delicious. And that's a common theme in this dish, right? You've got the sweetness, you've got the nuttiness that comes in all these different ways, and that gorgeous profile. Okay, so this is just cucumber, some crushed nuts, some chili flakes, a little bit of chili oil, a little bit of okra salt, and a pinch. I'm using ground garlic today, tiny bit of oil here, mix it together. Finish with some coriander, easy. And this is the avocado and cucumber kind of salsa, which I call like a Ghanaian wok, really. I'm just going to finish that with, actually I don't need to finish it, you did it for me, thank you so much. Right, let's plate it up. So I have an Osu ranch dressing, which is basically, Osu is a part of Accra, it's the liveliest part of town where all the parties happen. So this is my Osu ranch, the liveliest ranch in town. So we're going to have some Osu, are we there? Let's see. Why is it blocked? Thank you. Anyway, Osu Ranch, my house ranch, which features these beautiful single origins again, right? We've got that combination of grains of paradise and cube. The cube is really like punchy, forward, very peppery, but also has a bit of floridity behind it. But the grains of paradise balance it out because they're so expansive in their fruitiness. So you get a real kick out of this. Oh, that was a hot mess. There you go. And we've got some, so traditionally suya is served with just like fresh red onion, but I like to soak mine in a balsamic glaze. So you've got lots of onion here, then I like to give you some extra texture. So you've got the same glaze and some roasted version of the onion. You're going to put the suya, like this. Bit of lime juice to finish, bit of zest. Bit more salt. Do we have some suya powder over there? Because we didn't bring down the pre-mixed blend, I used it all up. Okay, imagine that this is the, what am I doing? I've got some in my thing. This is why I came prepared with pre-made. And then you just douse it in that gorgeous, finish it off, like la 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 la. If you like it hot, go heavy. If you don't, go home. Can I have that? Thank you so much. And then just pop it off with some greens for colour. Maybe some red onion, maybe some fresh red chilies as well. But that's suya. It's very, very simple, very, very quick. It takes literally 5 minutes to make something super, super delicious. And when people cook this at home, and you have people come for dinner, they'll be like, what did you do? I use suya at the end. It's that easy. Anyway, like I said, all of these things, suya, jollof, kelewele, you're making them, I'm looking forward to seeing your gorgeous kelewele dish today. All of these flavor profiles that we have in West Africa, they like, for one, they have incredible versatility and adaptability, despite the fact that in our own country we don't really go out of what we know, what we usually do with those things, right? So as I said, for me it's about introducing these seasonings, these single origins, talking about the wonderful health ingredients behind them, health benefits, behind them, and connecting people with ancestral foods and a diet that is that has informed their DNA today, and that's really what they should be sticking to, because your ancestors built you, and they were built on this.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. That's suya for me today from Ghana. But like I said, it's originally from Nigeria, and we all have our own little variation on it, and we're all more, our palates are the better for it. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I'm going to stop speaking because my mouth is very dry. Thanks.
All right. Nana, if you can talk a little bit about what you're making today.
Yes. Good. Hello. Good morning. So we talked a bit about street food, right? So one of the very popular things you'll find, apart from suya, you also find kiliwili. And kiliwili is a very childhood favorite of mine. Really throws me back to my first ever trip to Ghana. I was 6. And my birthday's in December, so we would go for Christmas. And just one of these things, you pass on the street and there is a lady who is by the fire, and she is roasting this kiliwili mix. So kiliwili is typically, you take ripe, well first, we're gonna wash our plantain, because just like any other fruit, vegetable, you wanna rinse out any of the impurities on the outside, because once you cut into the skin, then it will affect whatever is also inside. So you want to have clean hands, a clean vegetable. So what they do typically is they cut up a plantain, very small, and it's like a hot and sweet mix, because you're taking ripe plantains, and then you're also adding ginger, there's onion in the mix, there's cinnamon, nutmeg, all these different things. So what we're going to do...
Is there anything, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Is there anything that you put in your kiliwili blend that is maybe like, do you do it, have you made any innovations or changed things? Like what makes your blend yours?
Mine, I think I keep it very traditional in that sense. So like I said, there's nutmeg. So you take a calabash of nutmeg, that's one whole fresh nutmeg. You have, red pepper flakes. We have cloves, we have whole black pepper. Oh yeah, this was the cut. And then we have as well as ginger. So you're having this explosion of flavors, right? And it's almost like a marinade mix, and then it's fried. And since we're talking about peanuts today, that aligns with this as well. It's served usually roadside in a brown paper bag with toasted peanuts. So in this mix, we're going to blend all of our...
Should have borrowed that.
Yeah. The full cloves. You have your 1 calabash of nutmeg, red pepper flakes. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to blend this.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you feel? When I make kiliwili, I tend to fry it.
Yes.
How do you feel about? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the very because in my grandmother's neighborhood, Kineshi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, North Kineshi. Hey, Kineshi.
Okay.
The woman on the corner, I think, makes the best kiliwili in Accra.
Uh-huh.
And my recipe is adapted from hers.
Okay.
Which isn't too dissimilar from that, but she always fried it,
In a big walkout.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what's the different profile we get between roasting and frying, because obviously with frying you get the super caramelization.
Absolutely, yeah.
And when you're using the correct ripenesses, you like that medium ripe, I call that medium ripe.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that bursting sweetness, and you're going to put all this savoury and extra sweetness and pepper into it. So, but what does that mean for roasting? What's the difference for roasting and frying?
So when we talk about, Black foodways, are different cooking techniques that have continued to, just make its way and evolve. Frying, we know that we're people of fire, right? So you think open flame, you're thinking about frying, you're thinking about smoking, you're thinking about roasting, anything that you think of uncontrollable fire. In a sense, like we know where the hot points are in open flame. So I think it's very, very traditional of us to always do something that is engulfed in, we're gonna talk about palm oil as well later, but in oil. And it was also thinking about preserving in ways as well too. But as we continue to evolve and we're learning more about ourselves and health benefits, we talk about that, I think we should find alternatives to some of the things that we were doing. And doesn't mean that we can't change or we can't evolve and you can't get the same flavor profile as that. Because this one we're going to be doing is roasted, fire roasted. So I think you can still get that caramelization in oven roasting. But just thinking about ourselves, thinking about the future, our legacy, do we still want to be making the same techniques? The more we learn, the more we grow. And we don't have to do it that old way. You're still going to get the same. It's a little cleaner product, a better mouthfeel in some ways. So for me, it's just the approach is like taking Ghanaian food and be like, let's not always use Maggie. Let's never use Maggie. Actually, all this MSG. Let's take a different approach. We can still get to the same end result, but maybe we're actually thinking about ourselves, thinking of our input. Food is energy, right? So the more and more that we discover ourselves, I think we should also look into better ways to sustainably keep our lives and just the sustainable food. So,
since we're talking about Kelewele and we've talked about the peanut, let's talk about the plantain and how important it is to the Ghana table and West Africa in general. So Zoe, can you talk about that a little bit?
About plantain. I mean, plantain is one of my favorite ingredients. I've literally probably done 2 more cookbooks just on plantain. And if you were at the marketplace last night, you would have seen almost every African chef had an iteration of, or a version of how to treat plantain. So you're doing kelewele, you have dodo, just straight up fried plantain. Okay, let's talk about the journey of plantain. So that it comes green off, when you pick it fresh. At that point, it's basically 100% starch, so there's no sweetness, there's no real profile to it. I know people use it to make croissants and things like that, you can add flavour to it, but what's good about the green plantain is that because you can shape it in lots of different ways, it has a certain kind of manipulation. We in Ghana cook like a pen when it's green. Obviously, like I said, in the Southern American countries, they're going to do tostanas and things like that. I also use the green plantain because it has that structural integrity with the starch. I make like little crisps and like stick fries. Anyway, so as that plantain is ripening, which takes about a 9 to 10 week period, the colour changes from green to pale yellow to deep yellow, and it starts to mottle black, more black, and then very, very ripe. It's my favourite plantain. It's all the way black and mouldy. Nobody wants to touch it in the shop. And it's basically like you get 4 for £1, and it's already caramelised in the skin basically, and then you can bake with it, cook with it. It's 100% gorgeous sweetness. It's going to caramelise very easily. If you're going to fry it, we make tatale then at that end of the scale. We can make
There's so much versatility with plantain. That's probably, I think, as an African kid, that's like your best friend, your first friend, okay? Like, you learn that so quickly out the womb, but it's so, like you're saying, there are different stages in it. As for the green, it's the starch, you think about something that's more stable. So we use that in our swallows. When we talk about fufu, we use that with cassava. So it helps to stabilize in that green aspect. Then once it starts to ripen, then you can start to see the other characteristics that it brings. Because of its also strong skin, I think you get those, the sugars start to come in and the flavor profile changes again. So it's just it's such a beautiful, miraculous, honestly, and we don't praise it enough. And I think that we should continue to find ways. I mean, I actually, later I'm making a plantain upside down cake. So it's just like, you can take that flavor. It doesn't always have to be just seen as, oh, we're frying plantain, or I'm using with contombre sauce. You know, I can also take it to the other end, from savory to sweet, and still like enjoy this beautiful plant that is not indigenous to Ghana, but I'm glad we have it, you know.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about what you're working on now? We saw a red onion go into a blender, correct?
Yes. So right now I'm making the blend for the Willy Willy. So we have red plantain, like a quarter size. You're gonna do maybe like a thumb size of ginger. So I've already done my dry mix. So this becomes now slightly wet. Just a little bit of water to loosen it up.
I'm add some plantain thing. Last night I served confit plantain, and that's become a favourite dish of mine to prepare because it uses palm oil and plantain, which are two really basic ingredients, but conceptually elevates them, right? Suddenly it becomes, so a food that people is like an everyday thing that people don't really value very much becomes an elevated dish or an ingredient. And just to say as well that by roasting the plantain skin, because I have a zero waste kind of approach to cooking.
Yes.
You know, you can make I made canapé trays out of plantain skin. I also make plantain bacon. I also make
Plantain bacon.
from the skins.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So when if you have like the same ripeness that you're using for that plantain now, like that is the perfect ripeness to make plantain bacon.
Oh.
And plantain jerky. Like this, you can do so many things just with the skin. It's like incredible. And, like you can dehydrate it and turn it into a dust and mix it into seasoning. Like literally, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And you can get it for £3 for a pound or
Right.
$1. I'm in America. You know, it's like, why do not people use plantain? Because there's so many ways to cook it, to play with it. And yeah.
Yeah, so that is something I wanted to ask both of you is, you know, when you're thinking about your supper club, Nana, or you're thinking about your cookbook, Zoe, how do you think about conceptualizing dishes that you're infusing tradition and traditional ingredients, but also bringing your unique perspective to the dish?
Yeah, I mean, my whole cooking journey is that, right? I bring myself to the plate. I don't have culinary training. I'm self-taught. So it's always been about being curious about the ingredients, about being curious about what else can happen with these. Because my experience growing up was, wow, this is amazing food. And then as an adult, realizing that not everybody knew that. And there was like stereotypes around it and all these very negative opinions on what it was, and it wasn't valued. So I wanted to bring value to the ingredients, and I wanted to bring value to the recipes and the dishes, but also contextualize it and bring them forward to where I was in my experiences. So, you know, always my travels, my experience of intersectionality in the world, like who I am, is the energy I transfer into my food. And I don't feel shy about saying I'm a pretty creative human. So I'm trying to like always just think of creative ways to use traditional ingredients and flavors so that they're approachable, so that they are accessible, and so that, as I said, so that more people can have fun with them. Not just in the diaspora, but everybody's welcome to like, why not? Why isn't everybody enjoying jollof and kelewele the same way they have a curry or a Korean barbecue, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Nana, what's in your roasting packet here?
What is in my roasting packet right now? So I have made the Killy mix. I added the wet and the dry together. Just gonna rub it, maybe like set it aside for 15 minutes so it can really absorb all this. So with the red pepper, you're getting that little punch of flavor of heat, depending on how hot you like it. I like my food hot, so. And then the ginger just starts to just punch out this really amazing flavor. So I'm going to wrap it in foil. I'm going to roast maybe about like 25 minutes. I don't like to seal it too much so it gets all sticky. And place this in our oven. Of course, we have our cheat sheet new one that's already been roasted.
One I made earlier.
Voila, magic. So you open and you get this very caramelized Well, I'm going to try to.
Smells good.
You smell it though? It just like, the ginger just comes alive, you know?
Can we talk about ginger for a second?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I've got opinions about ginger.
Okay,
Like in the UK,
let's hear them.
In the UK, and actually not so bad here, but definitely in the UK, you see these massive bloated stems of ginger which have, like, I don't know, 10% of the actual gorgeous profile of what ginger should taste like. And in Africa, in Ghana, and most African countries, and also in Indian countries, you have this really small, integral, kind of tight little ginger that looks like I'm a baby ginger, but actually I'm an adult ginger that's pack and punch and just short. Anyway, it's like that thing of all of our ingredients, including calabash nutmeg, which is it has a different kind of profile, but it is in the same family as, Western nutmeg. They're just so much punchier for like so much less, so you get more flavour by using those indigenous ingredients than you do by using, like, you get a pound of ginger for, I don't know what it costs. But you're not getting any flavour, but you pay a little bit more for that little bit, it just goes much, much further.
So I think you bring up an interesting point, and that's about sourcing. And so when you're cooking food from Ghana and you're working in the US or the UK, how are you thinking about sourcing these ingredients that you're staying true to the flavor? And Nana, I'd love to hear from you on that while you're making your aioli.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
That's all right, the Roboku is loud. So we're talking about sourcing and how you stay true to those flavors while you're, in the US or in the UK.
Yeah.
How do you think about that when you're cooking for Love That I Need?
I mean, sometimes as I'm exploring more and more, I think before my approach was very just trying to be as traditional in some ways as possible, but also being kind of palatable to audiences. So I was scared to source some things. But now, we did this festival the other week, and it was the first time I had fufu on my menu. And so it's like staying true as much as you can. Sometimes it's difficult to really get the essence that you're looking for. And I think for me, that's why going back to Ghana has been very powerful for me, to be able to go to the marketplace and really see these ingredients for real, because sometimes we have to substitute. Like garden eggs, I can't get them here. They don't grow here like that. If I do get them, they're canned.
You can get them from me soon. I'm going to be growing.
Whoa.
Same.
Okay, chef, okay. But it's like sometimes, we have to take a little bit, we do contumbre. We can't get contumbre here. Contumbre is cocoa yam leaves, right? So that doesn't grow here. It's not tropical area. So we tend to substitute with spinach. So sometimes, it can be a little frustrating, but thinking about, the climate, sometimes it's just what it is, So, but being able to go back home in Ghana and doing my pop-ups as well, I feel like it creates another essence, another layer, for people to really be like, oh, okay, so this is what you're trying to say, Getting the fresh palm oil that's hasn't been overly refined, and so it's important to stay connected as much as you can, but we do with what we can because of the seasons, the climate.
Excellent.
Can I just?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What I'm going to say about that is, I've gone out and I've spent a lot of time talking about these ingredients, and always with the idea in my head that somehow, especially when it came to single origins, that the wealth would go back to Ghana, would go back to the places where those things grow, because we have to buy it from those producers. It came to my attention in 2017, 2018 that wasn't happening, because big food was coming in, understanding this conversation was happening, and then suddenly local farmers were being outpriced basically. It was all of their costs were out. And I was in markets like Lima and so on, and I couldn't find Grains of Paradise, I couldn't find Dawadawa, because they were being brought up and outsourced, but also because the community were looking to the West in terms of the ideal food standards and what's valuable, right? So I decided to, when it comes to sourcing, like I say, I have my shop, and I source all my single origins directly from co-ops in the north of Ghana. So I have a very short supply chain. I know exactly how they're getting paid, and that everybody's benefiting from that relationship. When it comes to contumbre and other things, I work with farms. So I have here it's the farm in upstate New York growing Scotch bonnets for me, okra, Schweiling moringa, farms in the south in Asheville. You can get taro leaves, yam, cassava.
Okay.
So, and increasingly I'm trying to make that a thing, like connecting black chefs and black farmers so that you can. Having said that, it's great to be able to do that, right? It's great to be able to grow these things here, but the profile is going to taste
It's going to be different.
At the end of the day, it's not in Ghanaian soil, it's not Ghanaian sun, you know, it's not Ghanaian soul. So there is variations in the profile, but it's just always about being as responsible as you can. And when you're, you know, for us, I think we're a generation of Ghanaians who are trying to push the culture forward a little bit, because at the end of the day, if you don't adapt the recipes, they die. And we come from traditions that are oral, so it hasn't been recorded, all of these recipes. You know, you have to watch a grandma, you have to watch an auntie, what you do, how much. And, you know, they don't have measurements.
And it's like, I picture this, a tin of this. Grandma, what does that mean? You know? Yeah.
So, you know, we're like adapting recipes to keep them alive in a way, but also to show what's new and possible, while also trying to keep that integrity of all that, you know, the soul of the food, the soul of the nut, the soul of all of the food be, and all of the soul of the beauty and the profiles and expansiveness, which is undeniable when you taste it, and that will always come through, even when you're replicating, really just changing out spinach for taro.
Yeah. Nana,
I know, this
see
is
you,
I'm like getting
there.
too much ahead, I'm sorry. So we're gonna do, with the plantain dish, I kind of wanted to revamp it, rethink it. So not only keeping the plantain whole like this, but now what's a great condiment that will serve for it? So thinking about palm oil, we don't use it enough in this country. I mean, obviously people are not familiar with it. So because we're in a tropical area in Ghana, like palm trees are so, you know, live and prevalent. So we use the whole tree. We're talking about palm nut fruit, first of all, which is how we press the palm nut oil. Then you're also thinking about palm wine, delicious, by the way. The longer it's out, the longer it ferments and it gets a little tipsy. But it's delicious to be able to use a different kind of fruit to think of, you know. And so exploring palm oil has been so beautiful to me because it's everything that we know, soups, stews. But palm oil has never been the star, right? It's the addition to that nuttiness in some of our soups, like palm nut soup, delicious. Palm nut soup with peanut butter as well, delicious. So it's just like the more and more we expose these, you know, the things that we've always treasured, I think the more we can really start to think about sustainability. We can start to think about even, we had, I think it was Chef Pierre was talking, this was probably yesterday, about sourcing palm oil the right way. So, you know, there's a lot of things going on with that that we have to think of in a broader picture as well. So when we start to, you know, highlight these items, we can really explore how, you know, our approach to it. So we also have some toasted nuts here. We'll get to, turn this down. So we're making the aioli, right? So we're doing palm oil aioli, starting with 2 eggs, and then I added some soybean oil, added a little water to break it down. So finishing it up here. A little bit more thickness we'll add. So I kind of go back and forth with water as well, just because it gets, as you're making your mayo, your aioli, it becomes thick. Just a little bit of water to thin it out. So kind of going, like I said, back and forth. So when it gets to, yeah, be careful you don't break it. Thank you. Let it just emulsify. So I think, I mean, in a nutshell, this is good enough to go. So we'll add in palm oil. The great beautiful thing is you see this dark color, but it starts to add this really beautiful yellow brightness, which I love so much about this. I kind of did this by accident when I started playing with this dish. Because originally I had done it with, I was making akara, And so I needed something to kind of balance. And I was like, ooh, akara is a bean fritter. Also thinking about red, which is another beautiful dish in Ghana that we have, which is plantains, fried plantains with black eyed peas cooked in a tomato palm oil sauce. So thinking about that, I'm like, okay, the flavors are all there together. Why not just brighten it up with this thing? So here you can see this is our finished product here. And I cut it with a little bit of red wine vinegar. So I guess I'm going to plate this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Please. Yes.
I love to see this because, when I wrote my cookbook, well, I was thinking about writing a cookbook back in 2012, 2013, there was a really strong narrative in the world that palm oil was bad and you shouldn't use palm oil. And I understand where that narrative came from, but it was because, the industrializing of palm oil, not for the red palm fruit, but for this part of the flesh that you find in all kinds of products like Mars bars, toilet soaps. It's crazy how it's been extracted for its, it has I don't know, there's a science behind it, I don't know what it is, but the industrialization of that crop in areas that actually aren't in Ghana mostly, because like I said, inherently, our food is unprocessed, our food is organic. Inherently, we've been using models of farming that have existed for thousands of years, you know what I mean? And we are very respectful of the land, we're very respectful of orangutans and whatever lives in the forest. We don't want to deforest. Africans aren't deforesting their own continent so much as other people are coming in and, using that resource and doing it in an unhealthy way. But the truth is, there are sustainable brands, there are sustainable ways of farming palm oil. It isn't inherently bad, but there are practices going on that are very, very bad. But it's about changing the narrative around an ingredient. And once you make it popular enough in people's consciousness, you can then think about, okay, well, how do we resource people to be able to do this more sustainably? Because then there's a demand for it in a wider sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that Nana's doing it like this, and I wrote in my cookbook about this recontextualizing palm oil. Having more people have a relationship with it again. Having said that, there are dishes where we use too much palm oil. Because it's oil at the end of the day. And I say too much from a health perspective because palm oil has lots of great carotenes in it, lots of wonderful antioxidants, in moderation, right? In the same way that all oils should be consumed in moderation, not because palm oil is particularly inherently bad for you, but palm nut soup it's a bucket of palm oil, it's delicious. But you don't want to eat that every day, you probably don't even want to eat it once a week for your health, do you know what I mean? So this is a great Zumi, Ghana's finest. And there are some super sustainable brands, sadly not black owned, so I'm not going to promote them. But we're working on getting more black farms and black owned businesses to be able to have the infrastructure to do what other people are doing to make it more sustainable. This is delicious.
Yeah, this looks incredible. The amount of varying textures that you have in this dish. Can you talk a little bit about what you're building
definitely. So I had put the palm oil aioli on the bottom, just kind of building height. The plantain is also the star, so it will always be the star in my eyes. And then spreading the peanuts around as well, toasted to perfection. Honestly, hot. There's nothing better than hot peanuts, and in Ghana we call ground nuts. Do you know the difference between is that a variety of how
just grow on the ground
comparative to peanuts? Yeah.
No, peanuts are ground nuts.
But I mean they look different. Do they not?
But they still grow on the
They're
ground.
still on the ground.
Ground nut is a species.
Correct.
Yeah, it's a different species than what we have here. That's why they're bigger.
Yeah. So
Bambara is also a ground nut. Did you know that?
Huh.
People think it's a legume, but it's a ground nut.
It's a ground nut.
Just saying.
Okay, love it. And then also making this herb salad that kind of just brings it together, with the herbs. We don't use herbs enough like that. We typically definitely use a lot of herbs for, in terms of medicine and things like that, but to show it on a plate as a shining star as well. So we have tarragon, chervil, basil, mint, lightly dressed with like a lemon and olive oil arranged around here. Yeah,
Delish.
that's it. That's the
Beautiful.
dish.
Just
Excellent.
I want to say before, oh, sorry.
Well, I do want to make sure we leave a couple of minutes for Q&A.
Oh, sorry.
So we're going to jump into that. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, we need a mic.
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
Great.
So here's the thing. We do have about 8-9 minutes for Q&A. If you could just wait for the microphone because we are webcasting this, and if you ask the question, or if you want to shout out the question.
And I'll repeat it. Absolutely.
That would be great because my asthmatic lungs trying to run up and down the stairs. But so if you have a question, you want to raise your hand, I can come over, and then if people talk, if you want to shout out.
Thank you for this delicious dinner. But I wanted to find out just a little bit more on some of the health benefits that you mentioned of some of these indigenous made ingredients that we don't get to enjoy enough here in the U.S.
Yeah, things like, well, just here, like we've got, actually I don't even have them in front of me. But okay, things like grains of Salem, grains of paradise, cubeb, they're going to have certain qualities. They'll be used for things like ancestrally, like cubeb, you might make, or grains of Salem, you might make a tea for it to deal with like migraines or headaches, or you might have, you could have a heart arrhythmia or a heart condition, and then you're having an infusion of, moringa. And moringa has so many antioxidants in it, and things like and calcium, a couple of grams of moringa. If you have moringa tea every morning, you're getting more vitamin C than you'll get in like 10 glasses of orange juice a day. Do you know what I mean? They are so intensely packed with dense nutrients, antioxidants, proteins, things that the body can't break down, because we're consuming so much stuff that we're not supposed to consume. Some of these ingredients will actually help digest and help break those things down. I have loads of articles on this on my Today Show column. Please visit my website, zoesgardenkitchen.co.uk. But for every single ingredient, I will give you a profile of its traditional uses, traditional herbal and medicinal uses, and how I extrapolate that in contemporary cooking.
Yeah. There's also health benefits in palm oil as well. Brain health, heart health. So you think it's, we're so much ingrained that our foods are too heavy, they're like bad cholesterol, all these things. But truly, like, our food is actually the opposite. And we also are very much vegetarians at heart, if you really think about it. So a lot of our food is just misconceptions and ignorance, So the more and more we continue to just really discover and explore these different, items, we can debunk these different, notions of that our food is unhealthy. And our food is truly remarkable.
Also, just to swivel on that topic a little bit, and to come back to what you were saying about the herbage on your plate, and it's like, West Africa has been colonized for so many hundreds of years, right? And the continent generally hasn't had the opportunity to explore the culinary arts in the same way that Europe has, in the same way that North America has. We haven't had the leisure time because food has been sustenance primarily. And so we're just for the first time, but at the same time, the health benefits of these have been used in communities and villages for thousands of years, right, for millennia. So we're just at this really exciting moment now where we have a new generation of people exploring these ingredients in new ways and bringing that old knowledge into the future in the process of doing it. And I think that's the future for African food, is us highlighting just how, because there's this misconception that Africa is this starving nation, famine, war-torn. Actually, we have wealth and riches that have been robbed from us, but we still have wealth and riches, you know what I'm saying? So we need to just change the narrative, which is what the whole conversation is about here. It's like changing the narrative around stereotypes, changing and bringing value to this food, right? Because, you know, when I started out in 2010, people didn't want to eat jollof in a restaurant or in a supper club because why am I going to pay for that when I can have it at home? There was this real, like, there's such a space still between how we value our own food and culture and how we value Western food and culture, you know. And I love that there's a new generation of chefs approaching it in this way and bringing it forward, because otherwise we're going to lose this. And you don't want Accra to turn into a city of sushi, just, you know what I mean? Yeah. We want to be able to get that red. I hope you've got red this morning for breakfast. We want people to be, you know, just enjoying this food as much as possible.
But I think when bouncing off of that is us actually telling our story, because our story has been told for us. And that's where everything continues to get, you know, mixed up. So having the understanding that we have the power, we're not looking anymore to be validated, you know, by the Western world. We should be taking it and knowing how much value we value ourselves, so we can value our food more, because our food isn't just sustenance as well. It's also, it's culture, it's how we talk to each other, it's how we celebrate each other, it's, you know, it's love. Like, that's how my mom, I mean, my supper club, Love That I Need, literally, I had to make this love for myself that I was looking towards the outside, but it's like my mom would make me, what do you want? I'm like, oh my gosh, I want, you know, I want jollof, I want suya, I want red, you know, so it's like the more and more we continue to value ourselves, and I think that we can really take that narrative and really, you know, take our platform and really push it.
What she's trying to say is we're taking over the world. Are you joining us?
All right, I think we have time for one more question.
Yes. Thank you, guys. This was fabulous, and your meat skewers, your beefs were phenomenal. Coming from a family where we have a specialized diet because of our daughter, God bless you for what you're doing. And I think that is a trend that is explosively growing, which I think is an indictment on the standard American diet and the Western culture diet, and what you guys are doing is so vitally important for the health of human beings. But I was so intrigued by your ingredients, so I went in and I already looked at the attachment, and because I'm like, I'm making this, I'm going to make this for my daughter and my wife. Now, you used the salt that you used and the other herbs are not in the recipe.
Thank you for bringing this up, and I wondered whether I would talk about it or not. But
so
you've given me the mic, so here we go. As I said, the original version of my cookbook, the recipes of which have been taken from, was written in 2013. This is a long time ago now, even though it's on its 4th edition. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Also, I'm doing a book signing later if you want to get one. But anyway, all that is to say, at the time of writing, right, there was I was one of the very few voices doing this conversation at the time, right? It was extremely niche, even more niche than it is now. And there was a real pressure from the publishing lens and the white gaze of media to make this, I mean, it was already accessible, right? But to really, you know, humble it down.
To put it into a box.
To put it into a box, it was just like, yada, yada. I mean, I don't regret it because it's had the success it's had, but I had to exclude certain things, right? So I couldn't include the single origins because the narrative was people won't know where to get it or where to buy it, which is why I started a shop, FYI. So some of the ingredients that would have been more, it's not that, look, for example, suya, you can make a 6-ingredient suya, you can make a 12-ingredient suya, or Michael Legby makes an 18-ingredient suya. That could be 4 ingredients too far, I don't know. But it tastes delicious. But the point is, we're all riffing off the same basic principles of the dish. It's the peanuts, it's the heat, it's the color, it's the aromatics, right? When you have all those, you've got suya. Like I said, that was 2013, this is 2022. I have grown as a chef, I have grown confident as a human, and I don't take shit from people anymore. So it's like, don't tell me people don't know about it. Well, I can't get it, because there's Google. You can Google it, and if you can't Google it, buy it from me. So,
so we can source it through you.
You can go to
your website, because I want to make it exactly like you made it.
Well, you can, sir. In fact, if you have the new edition of the book, it has up to date. So the American edition, this is the license I had, having grown as a human, having the industry having changed palpably after the racial reckoning of 2020. Off the wave of that, I got to do a new edition in the US in October, and for that edition, I revisited every recipe, and I put back everything that I had to take out in 2013. So while that first book is my baby, my Bible, and it's got a beautiful cover, and it's a solid grounding, the fourth edition equally will be more reflective of the chef I am now and my consciousness now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for letting us watch you cook today. And thank you all for joining us. Please follow them and follow their work. They're incredible. So let's give them a round of
That's good.
Oh, sorry.
Wow. So thank you to our chefs, Zoe Adjonyoh and Nana Araba Wilmot, and Korsha Wilson did such a great job moderating and just made for a great demo. So I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, this session was made possible by the support of National Peanut Board. And we thank and acknowledge Ryan LaPCA, Senior VP and Chief Marketing Officer. We now invite you to attend a break and enjoy flavor discovery tastings in the Atrium and Connect Lounge on the first floor. And then we will come back here for our next general session, Cooking the Diaspora, here in Ecolab. Thank you.